Hey folks, you may have noticed I've been pushing the Myers-Briggs type indicator a little bit these days, talking about personality. How can we not talk about personality when we think about being shut in during the pandemic as much as we have been? It brings out the best and it brings out the worst in us, doesn't it? So, part of the reason is that, as you already know, I am certified. That means that I get to help people walk through the actual assessment itself in the proper manner, which means that there's a dialogue, there's a discussion, there's something that we can actually dig a little deeper. Different tools that I use to make sure that you're asking the right questions of yourself, but you're also asking the right questions of how you interact with others. At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. When we talk about assessments, when we talk about type, we're not talking about typecasting. We're not talking about the I am statements that people often run into where you all of a sudden say, well, this is just the way I am. No, it doesn't work that way because you're still making decisions about how you interact. We're talking about preferences. We're talking about uh, the way that you'll often lean in different situations and just the different ways that you want to preferably interact with society and social settings around you, as well as what's within you that you show outside. I'm actually into quite a few different types of personality resources and things, if you will. I mean, beyond the training, beyond the manual, the material, up here I have the disc profile, which I know of other trainers that use that as well. I've used that with my volunteers in the past. But when I look at the different things that I have on my shelf here, I mean, I have everything from where we talk about, from a psychological standpoint, we talk about personality traits. I have material on that, which is more about are we working within the realm of normal when we talk about acceptable behavior and what's happening with a person's health. Type doesn't talk about health. Type can talk about health in the sense of how you live out what your type is, but what that comes down to is behavior and the choices that you make. And so when we talk about trait, we're talking about are there different personality traits that may be exhibited that are possibly outside of the person's control, but they may be damaging or they may be harmful to others and themselves. With type, we're only talking about in the senses that it's a benign feature. It is what it is. You do what you do and you choose what you choose because those are your preferences and you walk within that. Uh, and you may sway from time to time. Stress will change the way you operate in those things. And again, going back to COVID-19, we've had a fair amount of stress, haven't we? So when we look at it from that standpoint, it can bring out the absolute worst in people, and we've seen that, but it can also bring out different levels of good and changes in our behavior and changes in perspective because we're having to sharpen each other as we interact or not interact. So I look at a few of the other books. I've mentioned some of these before on my blog as well as in emails and whatnot. Yes, I do have a book on the Enneagram. The Enneagram nowadays has come up so often. People are really into it, partly because it's based on talk and personal preference again. There is an assessment within this book, but most of it is anecdotal. That means that people can discuss it and feel a certain way for whatever number they might be within the Enneagram star, so to speak. Uh, Another one is just trying to think offhand what I have here, but Clifton's Strengthsfinder. Maybe you've taken this before for work in a group or a team setting. The Strengthsfinder is great because, once again, it is personality type. It is just the way that you feel from within and the way you show that in your external world, how you choose based on those preferences that you have. The Strengthsfinder is good. I know for myself when I was struggling to figure out where I was missing the mark and what I needed to do to improve, Strengthsfinder was great for that because it helped me understand my top 5 strengths. And when I read the descriptions on those 5 and the assessments online, and of course the handy book gives you the all the material you need on that, and you can read up on strengths and weaknesses and outcomes and whatnot. I found that a lot of what I was struggling with was that I was operating outside of my strengths. Because when I read the strengths, it was literally like I was reading my mind. The things that came up, the way that it's structured, how those things would play themselves out in a group setting or a team setting. I often use the word team when I talk about groups because Most of the time when we operate, even as families on occasion, we operate as teams. We each play a part where we each play a role. And if we're not playing within our strengths and we're not playing within our true preferences, what we end up doing is we aim and lean towards our weaknesses, or we lean towards the things that aren't comfortable. And there is always a place for discomfort. That's life. But there's this aspect of leaning into the things that are discomfort because they're just not you. And when you lean on them heavily, that's where struggles can start to come up. That's where miscommunication can happen. That's where roles are defined in an ugly fashion. That's where we tiptoe around each other, or we sidestep each other. A good one that I've actually acknowledged more than once: the delicate art of dancing with porcupines. This is based more so on the idea of temperament and how we operate within our social setting, and the way that we view information, and how we operate and make decisions based on that, but also how we respond to others based on the material that we have. So those are a few different examples that I use. As you can see, there's a number of different books that I've walked through and helped others through, or I've just used as resources and helps, regardless of the setting. And that's part of what I do, is I help point people in the right direction, but I also sit down and have that conversation and say, where's the struggle? Where's your objective? How are you getting there? What's stopping you? It's a pretty simple conversation, but not everyone stops to take it. And that can happen from the individual to just a few people. Like I've said, I've worked with families like this as well, smaller staff settings, to whole organizations, having it that everyone together sits down and talks about how are we missing the mark, how are we not leading with vision, but also how are we working towards weakness, and in so doing, we're actually breaking others down, and we're causing more disruption than we are creativity or help and healing. So that's a little bit about why I've been pushing the personality thing again, because it's a part of what I do and it's what I enjoy. And yeah, just wanted to share that with you, and hopefully we can make contact soon so we can help each other lead, really.